Hello all. Good to see you've come back. There's been a few developments in my absence. The Spore Burst has returned to jump me like I owe them money. We got a few new biomes. The Sterilizer actually feels pretty good now. And most importantly, we now have a new car. The developments don't end here though. Due to my rapport with some of the funniest weapons in our arsenal, the Ministry of Truth offered me a new job, helping give a home to a few firearms that seem to keep filling up their storage units. It's no sulfur mines, but a good change of pace is always welcome. Speaking of a change of pace, I have snuck out of my job and I'm on the run. I am sustained solely on the oatmeal left at ammo stashes, the water of nearby lakes, and I sleep inside bunkers. Yeah, my new job of testing the lesser used weapons was fun for a while, but I found myself not really connecting to any of them, so I wanted to do something a little bit different. That's when I got the brilliant idea to run from the government. In preparation for this, I spent the last few months analysing the tools that would help me stay hidden. Our softest boots, slimmest armours, and quietest weapons have all led to our topic of today. An improper guide to stealth and the art of getting away with it. Now, stealth is a pretty broad term, so what am I actually looking at today? Mainly, we are going to focus on the tools that let us sneak around, their unique strengths in a loadout, and most importantly, how our tools are influenced by one of this game's core mechanics, audible detection range. To really help showcase just how powerful our stealth items can be, I need to quickly explain what this is. Obviously, a weapon's audible detection range is the maximum distance you can be from an enemy before it starts reacting to your gunfire, with our 5 main levels being suppressed, quiet, loud, very loud, and extremely loud. What you may not know, however, is that the range of a weapon's sound is completely dependent on the category it belongs to. Barring a few exceptions that we will cover later, all weapons in the same category will produce the same level sound, with most primaries being considered loud weapons. Even if you think something like the Bushwhacker should make more sound than something like the Peacemaker, it in fact does not. In conjunction to this, each enemy will have a hearing multiplier attached to them. This takes the sound value of your weapon and either increases or decreases their hearing based on that multiplier. Since a lot of units have very specific hearing ranges, I'm going to group them up into 3 categories for convenience. First up, we have normal hearing. These will be units that either have normal level or lower hearing. This will include most of the automatons, the larger termitids, and everything involving overseers. Next up, we have extra hearing. These are units who can hear just slightly better than the base level. These are most of the termitids, voteless, flesh mobs, and the watchers/obtruders. Finally, we have great hearing. This includes the remaining stragglers that have much better hearing than the first 2 groups. These will be harvesters, cyborgs, gunships, mortar emplacements, and detector towers. Nothing here is really consistent with one another, so you'll have to pay particular attention to each of these on a case-by-case basis. What actually makes the suppressed weapons so good is their dramatically decreased sound profiles. As mentioned, most primaries are considered loud. That means units with normal hearing will start to take notice at 48 meters, and those with extra hearing will do so at 63 meters. However, suppressors reduce those numbers significantly, now sitting at a maximum of 13 for normal and 17 meters for extra. This feature is what really puts the suppressed weapons apart from the regular firearms, offering you much more room to engage with enemies without alerting nearby outposts or patrols. It also doesn't end there. When you miss a shot with a normal weapon, the enemies nearby your bullet will be instantly alerted to your position. Missing a shot with a suppressed weapon, however, will only put them into an alert stance. They'll look around for the source of the shot, but will return to their original position if they find nothing. Don't get too carried away though, as missing multiple shots while they're in this alert stance will give away your position. Now, with all of the positives mentioned, they all mean nothing if you aren't using the weapons correctly. For stealth to function, not only does the target need to die in one shot, but other nearby enemies must not hear you fire the weapon. Hearing is everything in this game, so much so that an enemy can watch a friend get domed in front of them, but will not react if they did not hear where the shot came from. Failing to dispatch the target in one shot will let them instantly alert their allies of your position, and if you're within range for an enemy to hear your suppressed weapons, you will be investigated and forced to go loud. Before I move on and assess the strengths of our stealth tools, I must stress the importance that going loud is not a matter of if, but a matter of when. You are not Solid Snake, and this game was not designed with Metal Gear Solid levels of stealth in mind. Enemy AI and their activities will eventually force you to engage in massive fights, and sometimes a 500 kilogram question requires a 500 kilogram solution. Stealth is simply an additional tool to a Helldiver's loadout, letting you evade certain patrols, doing the odd objective without a fight, or eliminating key targets to make going loud easier and on your terms. It will never be a replacement for the overwhelming firepower that is often demanded of you. Now with that cleared up, I can happily move on and examine the tools of our trade, starting with the suppressed weapons. The R72 sensor is an excellent marksman rifle, providing a respectable 165 damage per shot, alongside sporting the second highest fire rate in its category. As such, this weapon has fantastic utility both as a long-range pick option and a close-range self-defense tool. This weapon excels the most against the automatons, as their unit design allows the sensor to take full advantage of its high damage, allowing it to one-shot all basic troops to the body and the head, while also dispatching berserkers, devastators, and unarmored cyborgs with a single headshot. This is especially notable against the cyborgs, as the sensor is the only suppressed weapon with the damage to achieve this feat. It's also ideal to make them a priority target where possible, as these guys are all ears, having twice the hearing of regular units. This allows them to hear suppressors up to 27 meters away, effectively doubling the trooper's range of 13 and informing them to call reinforcements early. Unfortunately, this weapon doesn't quite have the firepower to one-shot most of our medium-sized bugs or overseers, but that is where the stagger comes in handy. The sensor has a stagger force of 20, allowing us to stumble close-range threats such as hunters, hive guards, warriors, cyborgs, and overseers if you hit one of their flesh regions. These enemies have a bit of a unique quirk to them, where their armor provides a higher stagger resistance rating than the flesh underneath does, a very useful attribute to have in your back pocket against these enemies. This weapon is an overall solid choice if you prefer high single-shot damage and utility over sheer fire rate, the latter of which being an aspect our next item excels in. The AR-59 suppressor acts as a middle ground between all of our suppressed weapons, sacrificing the potential for silent picks on larger targets such as devastators in favour of offering true firepower when things go loud. With 80 damage per shot and the second highest fire rate in the assault rifle category, it's the safest option if you're engaging enemies, as the quieter sounds of your firing will help prevent nearby outposts or patrols joining the fight against you. There have been multiple times where I have just finished clearing out a bot drop or a bug breach, only to turn around and see enemies standing barely 20 meters away from me, completely ignorant to what was happening next to them. One last thing to note is that the bullets fired from this weapon are affected by gravity slightly more than the rest of the assault rifles. If you want to make the most out of the suppressor, I would recommend using the 4x combat scope once you unlock it. Having that extra visual clarity over longer distances can help ensure that you hit the shots you need to avoid detection. Moving towards our Halo weapons for today, we have the M7S. If you find yourself not needing the range or the tight accuracy of the suppressor, this submachine gun offers you a fantastic alternative option, as it provides slightly higher DPS than the assault rifle does, sporting 90 damage per shot and a fire rate of 872 bullets per minute. While the added damage isn't enough to do anything that the suppressor couldn't already, the higher DPS helps clear fights quicker and acts as an extra bonus to this weapon's true defining feature, being one-handed. This utility is incredibly useful across a wide range of objectives, as being able to properly defend yourself as you carry valuable data, or extract with optional rewards such as the confidential data, the mutated egg, or the Hive World pickups is invaluable. The M7S is also fantastic when you're fighting the Terminids and the Illuminate. This being a one-handed weapon makes it an incredible asset when you're trying to fend off faster enemies such as warriors, hunters, and voteless while you're running away. It also functions in tandem very well with the ballistic shield, offering you good protection against all forms of damage once things go loud. Following onto our second Halo weapon for today, we have the M6C/SOCOM. This acts as a solid backup option for silently taking down enemies, even allowing you to benefit from the perks of suppressed weapons on a normal loadout. The one-handed nature of this weapon also makes it ideal for all of the objectives that I listed under the M7S's strengths. With its 125 damage per shot, it also has the ability to one-shot Berserker and Devastator heads up to a safe 14 meters away, something that the SMG and the assault rifle cannot do. The pistol also boasts a slightly higher stagger force than the SMG does, allowing you to stagger hunters when they're jumping at you, cancelling their attack mid-air. Since this and the M7S come from the same warbond, they were designed to cover up each other's weaknesses. As a result, you are incentivized to take both, with one weapon handling the crowd control and the other handling the more precise one-shot eliminations. As such, this ends up being a solid choice for a secondary, no matter the faction you're fighting against. While we're still on the topic of secondaries, I want to quickly cover the P-35 Re-Educator, because it kinda is and kinda isn't a stealth item. This dart gun is actually quieter than the suppressed weapons, being one of the 2 items in the game to be considered whisper quiet, only producing a sound level of 2 meters that is then affected by the hearing multiplier. However, because the projectile is not fired from a suppressed weapon, missing an enemy will still alert them as normal. On hit, this weapon will inflict 100 status strength for the gas Mark 1 effect on the target, confusing them for a total of 6 seconds. Alongside its hidden heavy armor penetration, this is an excellent supportive tool for confusing medium to large targets, forcing them to either disengage or reveal their weak spot to your team. However, you must not try and use this as a silent takedown tool. Due to its very low projectile damage, the largest targets you can kill even with a headshot are still only hunters and troopers. Trying to do so against larger targets will only inflict them with gas damage, and even if they're confused, they will still alert their allies of their injuries and expose your position. As one last thing before we move on, the heavy pen allows you to destroy automaton ammunition cases without making a sound. Shockingly, they do not react to the explosion that this makes, allowing this to be a viable option if you want this objective done quietly, especially useful if you're on commando missions. Before we finally move away from our secondary weapons, it feels noteworthy to mention that all melee kills are completely silent, with the only exception being the actual explosion from the breaching hammer. Using your normal melee swing will also accomplish this, but it's important to understand that an enemy will only take multiple hits silently if they're staggered. The moment they recover from their stagger, they will alert their allies. The normal melee swing of a Helldiver has a stagger force of 25, which lets you stagger most small enemies such as warriors, troopers, and voteless. However, if you want to stagger most of the medium enemies as well, you will need something like the stun lance, stun baton, or the one true flag. All of these melees have a stagger force of 35, which is enough to stagger enemies such as overseers, devastators, berserkers, and scout striders. Depending on the stun resistance of the target, it will also apply 5 seconds of stun by the second or third hit, offering you a little bit of leeway if you happen to miss a hit afterwards.
Fire in the hole!
Now with the normal weapons out of the way, I get to showcase something I don't see anyone using: the throwing knives. This is an incredibly fun throwable, sporting great single target damage and medium penetration. While it may not have the crowd clearing capabilities of a grenade, it does offer you the unique opportunity to silently take down enemies in one shot that not even the sensor can. Namely, these will be nursing spewers and overseers. When it comes to stealth, the ability to one-shot overseers is an unmatched utility, as you're usually forced to go loud against them since none of the normal weapons can one-shot them. On top of that, the knife makes no noise whatsoever, nothing when it's thrown, and it will not alert enemies if it narrowly misses them.
I don't think James Bond dresses like that.
See?
Insane.
This becomes a great option for silent takedowns, especially if you find yourself either within the audible range of your suppressors, or if there's a group of enemies who are just too close to each other. One of my favourite enemies to abuse with these are the reinforced scout striders, as you can one-shot them by hitting one of their rockets. This only works as well as it does because the bots just don't seem to hear the explosion. It's honestly kind of shocking what the enemies in this game do and do not hear. These also sport a whopping 35 stagger force, allowing you to stagger just about all small to medium-sized enemies. Truly, the power of the liberated concussive in the palm of your hand. Now, as you're sacrificing your main respawn closer, I would absolutely advise taking a support weapon that fills in that utility, whether you take something like the grenade launcher, the autocannon, or our next item, the C4 pack. I won't stay on the C4 pack for too long, because I really think it goes without saying just how good it is. The damage it provides allows you to kill multiple larger enemies with one bundle if you hit the right regions, such as War Striders, Hulks, Chargers, and Flesh Mobs. Alongside this, it offers you increased flexibility in how you engage enemy outposts and objectives. The ability to plant C4 bundles on multiple enemy spawners, or objectives like bioprocessors and spore spewers, is a great way to clear enemy dense areas without alerting them. It's also a good tool to initiate engagements with, sticking them to the bigger threats I mentioned earlier to make it going loud on your terms. Moving on, we have the smokes, and since they all do the same thing, I'm going to cover all of them here. The idea is simple. These items create a cloud of smoke that obscures the enemy's vision of us. The only issue is that most sources of smoke make some level of sound. Using something like a smoke grenade at a distance will alleviate this issue, but since the call and sound of stratagems are considered very loud, anything you wanted to hide from will no doubt have heard you. Orbital and Eagle smoke are much better off used as disengagement tools, either covering your escape or using it to block the enemy's line of sight so you can handle stationary objectives. As for the smoke grenade in particular, enemies will lock onto your position if a grenade simply enters their detection range. As a result, throwing these as you sneak around can actually expose your position if you're careless. You should instead hold the smoke in your hand until it detonates, as this controls the enemy's visuals of your exact location. It should also be noted that the smokes have an audible detection range of 10 meters by default, so even being too close to an enemy will alert them to your position. This item still has better sneaking in utility over the other smoke options, but also functions just as well when sneaking out. One final note here is that since Helldiver respawn pods make no sound, it can be worthwhile to use the smoke pod booster to also cover your visuals. Just remember to be mindful of what stratagems you or your team is using when you use this booster though, as it will also block the line of sight of our sentries. Before we wrap up on the stratagems, I just want to quickly showcase the utility of the expendable anti-tank and the bulletstorm, but not quite for the weapons themselves. As I just mentioned, all stratagems are coded to be very loud, drawing the attention of enemies from pretty far away. You, however, can use this to your advantage. If there happens to be an objective that an enemy is looking at, or an incoming patrol, throwing one of these away from you will draw their attention in that direction. Not only can this allow you to quickly do an objective unseen, but it'll also draw the attention of an entire patrol to the position of the stratagem. Ideally, you do not want to burn high cooldown items for this benefit, which is what makes the expendable EATs and the bulletstorms so valuable. Starting with a cooldown of 70 seconds that you can eventually decrease to 60, they make for ideal distraction targets that you can always have on hand. Now that our weapons and stratagems have all been thoroughly examined, I can move on to our next major discussion point: the armor passives.
Deploying support weapon.
Starting us off for today, we have Feet First. The main draw to this passive is the 50% quieter movement sounds, something that can come in handy when you're trying to run away from units undetected who fall into the extra hearing category. You might be wondering to yourself though, how much sound do we actually make when we move? Crouching is heard at about 1 to 2 meters, walking at 5 meters, and running at 10 meters. Shockingly, this also affects the jump pack and the hover pack. Normal testing has shown that these items are heard at 13 meters and 16 meters respectively, but testing with Feet First yielded much more interesting results. With this passive, these numbers are reduced to 0. They are just completely silent. Nothing in this game has quite shocked me as this has, and I hope my genuine reaction to this information really sells that. Nothing!
Or fucking no, I'm not.
It's silent!
Bug milk, bug snacks. It is nothing. Yeah.
Activating jump pad.
Insane. As a final bonus, this passive also helps you avoid detection from automaton mortar emplacements. These guys hear our actions at 5.7 times the normal value, letting them even hear suppressors up to 75 meters away. The sound of our running is also heard at about 57 meters, but using this passive will cut that in half, allowing us to actually run up to these objectives without getting fired on. The reason for this is that mortars cannot fire within 48 meters of them, so we won't be bothered by them so long as we don't shoot anything along the way. As for the other buffs, I don't personally get too much from the increased POI detection, because, well, I'm at the point where I don't entirely need it. What I cannot deny, however, is the style of the new Mombasa fit, especially since it lets me cosplay as Hunk from Resident Evil. My favourite aspect of this armour, however, is the final buff. Provides immunity to leg injuries. Things like these is what I refer to as a silent buff, which is something you don't realise you're benefiting from until you switch armours. The protection against broken legs is amazing, as you're no longer forced to stim because an attack that otherwise tickled you just happened to break your leg. This makes it incredible when you're fighting the Terminids, as it allows you to continue running from the Horde without worrying about broken legs. For our second passive today, despite its simplicity on paper, Scout is the thinking Helldivers passive. This armor offers you a 30% reduced visual detection range, alongside letting your minimap pings detect enemies only if a Helldiver is within 140 meters of the location. The 30% reduced vision really amplifies stealth builds, allowing you to evade enemies who would have absolutely seen you otherwise. The enemy ping is also a great tool for planning out how you want to engage outposts and objectives, giving you a sneak peek at what you're about to face. I must really emphasize that you will only see enemies on the minimap if there is a Helldiver within 140 meters of the location. Now with that said, bug holes, bot fabs, and squid ships always appear in the pings no matter what, as they must always be spawned on the map. This niche knowledge can pair well with the C4 pack, allowing you to see exactly where the enemy spawners are in advance. This passive really excels against all enemy factions, especially since we get free access to this armor in light, semi-light, and medium through Helldivers Mobilize. Last but certainly not least, we have Reduced Signature. This is the obvious go-to stealth armor, containing most of the important buffs from Scout and Feet First. By sacrificing your ability to detect enemies on the minimap, you gain an additional 10% reduction to your visual detection, while also having the standard 50% reduced movement sounds. With this armor, you have comically low presence to enemies, letting you get away with downright shocking plays that you would have absolutely been spotted for otherwise. There will always be discussion about whether this passive or the Scout passive is better for stealth. In truth, that choice will be entirely dependent on how much you value the minimap ping. I would just say to pay attention to the mission modifiers you're dropping with. If your mission contained ion storms or atmospheric spores, it might be worth quickly trading Scout out for something else. Now, that was a lot of information, but with our tools fully assessed, I can now give a quick rundown on priority targets and what you can expect in each faction. First off, you want to identify if there are any enemies that have extra or great hearing, and either eliminate them or move yourself out of their range if you cannot do that quietly. Anyone that extends the hearing of reinforcement callers is just as threatening as they are. This will include units like cyborgs and harvesters, who hear at double the range, and voteless, whose hearing and numbers can cause a domino effect that will eventually lead to a watcher. Once you've done that, your second priority is eliminating anything that can call reinforcements. That means dealing with automaton troopers, illuminate watchers, and Terminid. Yeah, we'll get to them. Cutting off reinforcements is an easy way to control the flow of the fight, allowing you to get in and get out quicker. From there, it's simply a matter of quietly eliminating who you can before you're forced to take the enemy head on. As for some general advice on what to expect, I want to begin with stressing the importance of restraint, especially in regards to patrols. How the AI acts in a patrol doesn't quite follow all the rules that I've covered so far. The most important thing to know is that killing anyone in a patrol will instantly alert the rest, and they will race over to investigate no matter how far away they were. In my personal experience, they almost always knew exactly where I was as well. If you happen to see a stray trooper, bug, or voteless just walking around, leave them alone. You can never be certain where the rest of their patrol might be. With that off my chest, I can now give you a brief rundown on each of our factions. The automatons are the easiest faction to stealth, as their unit design allows for easy picks, alongside the fact that they are the most deaf faction by a wide margin. Troopers, Berserkers, and most of the Strider family are the only units with normal hearing. Just about everyone else in the main roster is comically deaf, with their hearing getting less and less the bigger they get. Just remember to be mindful of the noise that you make around gunships and detector towers, and you'll be just fine. Moving towards the Illuminate, they act as a middle ground between our three factions, having a nice balance of normal and extra hearing among its units. While Voteless, Flesh Mobs, and Watchers have a rough 1.2 to 1.25 times hearing multiplier, the Overseers still only have normal hearing. As a result, you're still forced to pick off enemies at 18 meters anyway, which is still a bit further than the 13 meters that Overseers will hear suppressors. Unfortunately, without the throwing knife, you're still likely to go loud against Overseers, but all Voteless will go down with one headshot from any suppressed weapon, and the C4 pack will let you eliminate Flesh Mobs and Harvesters in 1 and 2 bundles respectively. As one final note before we move on, it's also possible to deactivate Disruptor Towers silently, because shockingly, the energy siphons also make no noise when destroyed. As long as you're mindful to the location of Harvesters, you will also be fine here. Now, as for the Terminids, these guys are fucked. They will hear you step on a stick and instantly teleport behind you, farting up the boys. It doesn't end there either. As mentioned earlier, these are the only enemies who can call for reinforcements on the bots and the squids, and these are the enemies who can do the same on just the bug front. Between armoured heads, high durable protection and the bleed out status, you will not be able to take out all of the targets you need silently without being detected. The idea of stealth drastically shifts when you are fighting the Terminids, changing precise eliminations and sneaking around into simply reducing your presence as much as possible until you get spotted. You have to accept the fact that this gear will only let you evade certain enemies and let you take out smaller bugs like hunters who would have called for reinforcements otherwise. Once you get to an objective, it's time to go loud. Now that the enemies of our great democracy have been assessed, there's only one more thing I want to delve into before I leave you off today. During the research and production of this video, I have no doubt realised that most of these toys are locked behind warbonds. So, how does someone without these tools actually engage in stealth? Well, the sentiment of simply reducing your profile instead of outright stealth is more applicable than ever. If we think back to when I mentioned that most primaries are considered loud, I did purposefully omit some information so I could cover it here instead. Yes, most primaries are considered loud, but submachine guns, pistols, and flamethrowers are all actually considered quiet, only producing a sound level of 33 meters. While they may not be as effective as suppressors are, the difference between quiet and loud can be the deciding factor between nearby enemies hearing you or not. From there, we have access to 3 forms of scout, the smoke stratagems and the smoke grenades for free. If you need to melee an enemy to conceal your position, just remember that we can only stagger enemies up to the size of troopers, warriors and voteless. And that wraps me up for today. Now that you understand stealth and audible detection ranges, I want you to give it a go. Unlock the warbonds, or pick up the gear from bodies who were very clearly already dead when you got there. You now have everything you need to succeed in the field. Stealth is an incredible asset to any Helldivers loadout, but the time will always come when you need to drop it and go loud. This project would have likely come out a lot later if I had to do all of the testing myself. Luckily though, I didn't have to this time. It turns out that someone had already done most of the work, so I just went in and tested what they hadn't yet. I don't even know who made the spreadsheet. All I know is that a friend of mine found this in a Reddit comment section and sent it over to me. Thank you, Anonymous Helldiver. I will have their spreadsheet linked in the description, alongside my one that contains most of the important numbers that they didn't test. I also had to make a new email so I didn't dox myself, so someone had better use it. Now that this is done, I can present my work to the Ministry of Truth and explain to them that this was all just a stunt to help clear their inventory. Just before I leave you off today, there will be another upload shortly after this one goes live. It'll be a mostly unedited automaton match, applying most of the techniques and tools that I discussed here. Until we meet again, have fun.